And now for something completely different. This is actually very good that we follow because mine is a bit more of a practical application of some of those things that were just discussed. First, a little bit about Define American. We were founded by the Pulitzer Prize winning journalist Jose Antonio Vargas, and we combat anti immigrant misinformation in mainstream media and increasingly, as we've discovered, online and across social media platforms. I think that about sums up what we do. So, why this matters? I want to do some table setting for everybody here. We're at a point in American history where we are debating whether or not we want to be letting people legally into the United States from outside countries. We are at a point in a country where we are putting children into cages at our southwest border. We are at a point in our country history where we're deporting veterans, business owners, and in many cases detaining American citizens because of the color of their skin. Now you're thinking, what does this have to do with MisinfoCon? Well, I'm here to tell you that a lot of this was made possible by the dissemination of misinformation on the internet. A lot of this has been made possible by our buddy here, Pepe the Frog, and a lot of the stuff that used to exist on Reddit and 4chan. And so, more pointedly, all of this was made possible because there are a lot of people at family barbecues that casually share racist memes of Michelle Obama looking like a monkey. And nobody thinks twice because of the way that these networks and platforms have siloed so much of these conversations. And so we're in a place where a lot of this stuff has been completely normalized, right? This quote, my only quibble with Trump is that number one, it's legal immigrants too, and number two, there are no good ones. From Ann Coulter, this is 2015, she said this. This was considered a joke. Nobody would take this seriously. But again, we are debating in the United States government whether or not we should be letting legal immigrants come into this country. We're putting children in cages. Again, this used to be the stuff of jokes. Now it is the policy of the government. We're deporting veterans, business owners, students, Americans in every way but their legal status. There was a person who was an American citizen in Los Angeles who was detained for almost 3 months because of the color of his skin. And so we have to start with a simple idea. And again, we go back to memes and these sort of conversations. In 2012, Mitt Romney introduced this idea of self-deportation, where you make the country so awful for people who are not here with documentation that they would just leave. And it was treated as a joke by the mainstream media. People laughed at it. People said this is an unserious policy, not worthy of the President of the United States. And he lost. Right? And if people don't work here, they're going to self-deport to a place where they can get work. Now, I really want to focus in on 2012 because something happened between 2012 and 2016 that's important, right? Let's go back to 2012. He lost all the Latino vote. He lost the Asian vote. He lost everybody who was inspired to this country. Donald Trump, our current president, said this. Rightly so. Fast forward to 2016. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. Everybody knows this quote. Everybody thought it was funny at the time. But what's fascinating about this is, where did this come from? Where did this notion, this change? And I would argue, I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with the Tantan Network here in this room in DC. Not a lot of people. What's interesting about the Tantan Network is they were founded in the late 1970s, early 80s, by a gentleman by the name of John Tantan, who was a eugenicist, who literally believes that people of color have smaller heads, or inferior, doesn't believe that they should exist in the United States. How many of you guys saw Infinity War? Well, wow, I would think more, but that's fine. Spoiler alert, the whole thing is predicated upon one man believing that he needs radical environmentalism, which is he's going to halve the population, and that's going to be what saves the universe. John Tanton believed that we needed to halve the population in the United States because we had a finite amount of resources and things in this country, so we had to get rid of all immigrants and probably a lot of people of color. He founded these organizations, the Federation for American Immigration Reform, the Center for Immigration Studies, and Numbers USA. And so what's important to sort of take from all of this is, from 2012 to 2016, these guys were considered jokes. Nobody in DC took them seriously. Nobody here knows who they are, right? That, I think, is very telling. And what's important about this is, without a mainstream audience or a government that took their extremist agenda seriously, they had no means of implementing a lot of the crazy stuff that they did. Enter Steve Bannon. He gets the internet around 2012. And his main idea here is he goes on Reddit, he goes on 4chan, and he sees people sharing all of these crazy racist memes. He sees that there's an audience for this. He sees that there's a market for this. And as a part of that market, he builds a network. He builds Breitbart. He builds, he works with Alex Jones and all these online things where it's safe and okay to do that stuff. But he doesn't have a means to mainstream this stuff yet. Well, the internet's is another sort of place where he can do this. And I think this is an important thing. Right around this time, you see the average number of Twitter followers per hate group type skyrocketing. Anti-Muslim, anti-immigrant. You're looking at a significant number, 17,569, right? There is a market being built for this. At the same time, these hate groups, their influence is growing. Average number of likes per hate group also increases to 7.68. In 2012, that number was 0.21. It was less than 1%. There wasn't really that market for it. At the same time, these organizations are reloading. Numbers USA, growing its budget. You're looking at something around 18,000, over $18 million these guys have. And they're doing a lot of their marketing and their growth online because that's where their audience is. But they still don't have the ability to take their online audience offline. Enter Donald Trump. He wins the election, and what ends up happening is all of these organizations have relationships in Congress. They all spend a lot of money lobbying this stuff. They have people that go and work for DHS. They have people that go and work for the administration. Stephen Miller, Steve Bannon. These guys all have close ties to these things and are taking a lot of these policies, and more importantly, the language which they're using and mainstreaming it on media. So the gentleman on your left is Dan Stein. The gentleman on your right is Mark Krikorian. Dan Stein once said that he believes that immigrants in this country are engaging in competitive breeding to dilute the white majority in this country. He is on C-SPAN now. The gentleman on the right, Mark Krikorian, believes that Haiti is a messed up place because it wasn't colonized long enough. Haiti is a messed up place because they weren't colonized long enough. So they now have the platform to have these conversations, and they're tapping back into what's going on the internet. And so I just want to take you... Okay. Oh, I'm pressing the wrong button. So the government's role here, and this is important. They use these platforms to mainstream this language, like chain migration. I have 1 minute left. Chain migration is the concept of family reunification, which is actually a very normal thing. Then the New York Times and the Washington Post cover it. And this is an important slide. In the first half of 2016, the New York Times only sourced these guys 6 times. In the first half of 2018, 57 source stories. The Washington Post went from 11 source stories to 51 source stories. These guys are everywhere now. They're on MSNBC, they're on Fox, obviously, and that has real-world consequences. These lies are legitimized, the dehumanizing language is mainstreamed, and there are real-world consequences. Children are put into cages, American citizens are detained because this stuff has been completely normalized. It's no longer fringe, it's a huge problem, and we need help to help our fellow citizens. I look forward to your questions and comments.